It's a hell of a freaking light show. You're gonna love this.
From their excellent storytelling to the unparalleled animation style, the SpiderVerse movies are a spectacle that shouldn't be missed by fans of Spider-Man or animation in general. But what's a cast of superheroes without the villains? I'm Kyle with Wicked Binge, and we want you to join us as we travel into and across the Spider-Verse to sentence Spider-Verse saga villains for their crimes. We want to preface this with a big spoiler warning for the Spider-Verse movies, specifically Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Let's start off with the first villain given a proper introduction in the saga, the Green Goblin. Looking quite different from his most iconic appearances in the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies, Norman Osborn has clearly been working out. Or rather, some kind of experiments have been working out because there's no way those gains are natural. As one of many villains working under Kingpin, Green Goblin is sent to defeat Spider-Man and ensure that the Super Collider is able to do its dimension-connecting work. Although Green Goblin is an underling of Kingpin's, this doesn't make him innocent or constitute blackmail. He clearly holds a grudge against Spider-Man, and despite Kingpin's orders not to kill him by exposing him to the Super Collider's energy, he disobeys this with intent to kill him for his own pleasure. We can undoubtedly charge Green Goblin with terrorism, but the sentence for this varies depending upon the nature of the act. For Green Goblin, we could summarize his terrorism with destruction of property and attempted murder, which respectively yields sentences of up to 30 and 20 years. Tack on the fact that he was a willing ally to Kingpin, and if he were still alive in this universe, we would sentence Green Goblin to 50 years in prison. Hopefully we can find a cell big enough to hold him. Green Goblin might just be the biggest of Kingpin's underlings, but he's not the most notable. Enter Tombstone. He's Kingpin's most trusted associate, acting as his right-hand man. Literally, he's almost always seen standing right by Kingpin, acting as a bodyguard of sorts. He's not even adverse to intimidating his allies, shown when he holds Liv at gunpoint until Kingpin approves of him letting her go. Tombstone is intensely loyal to Kingpin and won't hesitate to follow his orders at any time, no matter who it requires killing or harming, clearly shown by his lack of remorse for breaking into Aunt May's house and destroying her belongings. This in turn makes Tombstone perhaps the most heavily responsible for Kingpin's evil deeds, excluding Kingpin himself, of course. He's guilty of attempted murder, destruction of property, and assault, all under the umbrella of terrorism. Given his extreme loyalty to Kingpin on top of this, making for no hesitation to follow any of his orders, Tombstone would most likely be getting life in prison. But given his stoic, calm personality, we'd actually say it's possible that he could get his sentence reduced with good behavior. On the other hand, his loyalty to Kingpin might just make this null and void, so we'll compromise and give Tombstone 50 years in prison with the possibility of parole after 20. It's okay, Tombstone. Either way, you're at least safe from Aunt May's bat. Speaking of, Tombstone wasn't the only one who showed up to that impromptu battle at Aunt May's. We hope you aren't too bugged by seeing Scorpion on our list. Like Tombstone, he's a loyal servant to Kingpin and doesn't mind following any of his orders, however brutal they may be, and regardless of whether or not they involve innocence. Honestly, what can we say about the guy in terms of his crimes? Attempted murder? Check. Terrorism? Check. Aiding and abetting? Check. Destruction of a child's property and attempting to murder that child as well? Yeah, that's new. But really, he's basically in the same boat as Tombstone, and we're sentencing him to 50 years with possibility of parole after 30. Let's quickly move on to Across the Spider-Verse to talk about the last minor antagonist, Vulture. Little is known about Vulture, as he's only present in the opening of the sequel as the first villain, fighting against Spider-Gwen, Spider-Woman, and Spider-Man 2099. The only thing we can surely say about this Vulture is that he broke into a museum, caused destruction of expensive property, and attempted murder. Since we don't know anything more, we'll give Vulture a sentence of 20 years. With that said, we move on to the more major villains in the Spider-Verse, and let us assure you they're all pretty bad. Starting with Dr. Olivia Octavius, but you might know her better by the name her enemies use for her, Doc Ock. She's the CEO of Alchemax, a large company assisting Kingpin in his endeavors to use the Super Collider to bring back alternate versions of his family, who were tragically killed in a car crash. At first glance, she seems quite charming, a bit socially awkward, but she's nice enough and seems to be working hard in her field. But when Spider-Man tries to turn on the charm with her, he finds out her true identity the hard way, gleefully telling him that, with him being in the wrong dimension, he'll be ruthlessly torn apart, and she can't wait to see it.
Do you know how painful that would be, Peter Parker? Can't wait to watch.
Doc Ock is sadistic and ruthless. She has no issue using her massive company and genius-level intelligence for the sake of evil. When it comes to Spider-Man, she even seems to take pleasure in it and wants to destroy every version of him that she can. Her crimes go beyond anyone else we've seen so far. She's willingly providing aid and resources to Kingpin, whose plan will tear apart the fabric of the universe itself. On top of this, she's likely ordering her employees to do the same, as the Spot reveals that he was the guy who had the bagel thrown at him in the first movie, and he had access to the Super Collider's power too. She's guilty of every crime we can attribute to Tombstone or Scorpion, and then some. She isn't just pure evil, she's crazy, and for the sake of herself and others, we sentence her to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Moving on to the Prowler. Uncle Aaron might be a great uncle who cares deeply for his nephew Milos, but he's also an associate of the Kingpin, in the case of the SpiderVerse movies. The reasoning behind this is unknown. From his brother Jefferson's description of him, we can reason that he's a bit of a slacker, but that doesn't explain why he's an outright villain working for Kingpin. But even if he had a sympathetic reason, he's still a murderer and an associate of Kingpin. He has no hesitation to kill anyone, including children, as at one point he tells Kingpin he'll find the kid and kill him.
The kid's out there. I'll find them.
In his last moments, he spares Miles' life and is shot by Kingpin, showing that he's at least not an entirely bad guy. Had he survived somehow, it's possible that his police officer brother might have put in a good word for him. It's unknown just how many the Prowler has killed, if any so far, but we have to assume he's at least killed some, since he was infamous enough to be hired by Kingpin, given his brother's potential connections, and since he's by far the most sympathetic of the villains on our list. We'll be generous and give him a sentence of 25 years in prison, just above New York's minimum murder sentence of 15 years. Okay, we've mentioned him in passing enough. It's time to talk about the big man on campus, Kingpin. Man, where do we even start with this guy? As the main villain of Into the Spider-Verse, he's at the core of every other villain's actions therein, whether it's characters like Vulture managing to escape from their home universe, his many underlings, or even helping develop the power that made the Spot who he is today. Kingpin is no joke.
It's not always about the money, Spider-Man.
We also know that he kills the Peter Parker of Miles' universe, kills the Prowler when he refuses to take Miles out, and is at the center of a plan that could have destroyed the entire world. We won't deny that we feel some sympathy for Kingpin, given his pain at losing his family. Nonetheless, that doesn't excuse his horrific crimes, especially in the context of a court of law. There's no doubt that Kingpin gets life in prison without the possibility of parole. You might be tempted to not take the next villain all too seriously, but trust us when we say that the Spot is a force to be reckoned with. He might be considered one of Spider-Man's joke villains, but as the main antagonist of Across the Spider-Verse, he proves that joke villains get tired of being laughed at. We first see him stealing from an ATM, which could constitute a hefty fine of up to $250,000 and up to 20 years in federal prison. But honestly, that's barely even worth mentioning considering the other crimes he commits. The Spot uses the resources of Alchemax to harness the terrible power that gave him his portal-producing powers, to become even more powerful, able to travel across dimensions as he pleases.
See you back home, Spider-Man.
So just off the top of our head, we have unethical experimentation, given that he worked under Doc Ock to help Kingpin, terrorism, destruction of property, attempted mass murder, mass destruction, and that's still probably leaving quite a few out, given the imminent danger that Spot poses to all life if he were somehow captured and brought to trial. This is a rare case where we have to say the death penalty is in order, so the only spot that he'll be getting is a spot in the electric chair. Finishing off our list, we have a character who might be a bit controversial, as while he's one of the main antagonists of Across the Spider-Verse, he's more of an anti-hero than an outright villain. Nonetheless, we feel we have to mention Miguel OHara, aka Spider-Man 2099. He's not just Spider-Man, he's a werewolf and a vampire, or something. As stoic as it gets, OHara is in charge of the Spider-Verse, making sure everything runs the way it's supposed to. After changing the canon of a universe a long time ago, he realized just how dangerous it was, and how much destruction it could cause, so he took it all upon himself. On a base level, he's definitely more of a force of good, trying his best to keep the universe from falling out of whack and ending countless lives. But there are some moments that cast him into a more morally gray light. He resists arrest in the first fight of the film. That could be 6 months in county jail, so in this dimension, he probably wouldn't get too much more than that. Maybe nothing once police were made aware of the full context. However, if police were able to look at his actions as a whole, there's also OHara's attempts to kidnap Miles Morales to ensure his plan to let the canon of his dimension play out comes to fruition, which, although well-intentioned in the big picture, is still kidnapping a child, which could definitely land him a very hefty sentence. So we'll say that he ends up getting 2 years in prison before the police see that he was actually trying to save the universe, and promptly let him do his thing.